Have you ever wished you could just print something real? I don't mean a piece of paper. I mean a physical object, something you dreamed up in your head. Well, today we're going to explore the incredible technology that makes that possible, 3D printing. We're going to go on a journey from a wild science fiction idea to a tool that is literally reshaping our world. Let's get into it.
But let's start with a big question to kind of frame everything. What if you could actually print an idea? No, seriously, think about it. To take a thought, a design, a solution right from your mind and be holding it in your hands just a few hours later. That is the core promise of 3D printing. It's not just about making stuff. It's about making imagination tangible.
So how does this magic actually work? Well, to get 3D printing, it helps to think about how we've always made things. See, most manufacturing is subtractive. You start with a big block of wood or metal and you carve away everything you don't need, right? Just like a sculptor. 3D printing, or additive manufacturing, flips that on its head. It does the complete opposite. It starts with nothing, and it builds an object from the ground up, one super thin layer at a time. It's a huge deal because you waste way less material, and you can create these crazy complex shapes that were just impossible before.
Now, you're probably thinking this tech is super recent, a 21st century thing. But the story of 3D printing actually starts a lot earlier than you'd probably guess. So let's jump back in time and check out its origin story. Long before it was even possible in a lab, you know where 3D printing existed? In the pages of science fiction. Way back in 1945, an author named Murray Leinster imagined a device he called a constructor that could create objects right from a set of drawings. It's a perfect example of science fiction dreaming up the future, long before science could actually build it. But the real action, the big bang for 3D printing, happened in the 1980s. That decade was just a whirlwind of breakthroughs. In '84, you've got Chuck Hull inventing what's called stereolithography, or SLI, using light to harden liquid into a solid. Just 2 years later, Dr. Carl Deckard patents SLS, which uses a laser to fuse powder together. And then in '89, S. Scott Crump patents FDM, the method most of us know today, the one that works kind of like a super precise robotic hot glue gun. Think about that. The three main technologies that still power the entire industry were all born in one incredible decade.
And that is such a key point. The 80s didn't just give us a cool new gadget for making prototypes. No, it laid the essential groundwork for a complete manufacturing revolution. It paved the way for 3D printing to grow up and become a real production technology. All right, so that's the history lesson. But how do we actually go from a file on a computer screen to a physical object you can hold in your hand? Let's break down the blueprint. You know, it's actually a lot more straightforward than you might think. It really boils down to 3 simple steps. First, you gotta have a digital design. You can make one in some software or get it from a 3D scan. Second, the computer slices that 3D model into thousands of super thin horizontal layers, kind of like a CAT scan of the object. Then it sends that info to the printer. And finally, once the printing's done, there's usually a quick finishing step, maybe some cleaning or curing, to get the part ready to go. Okay, now let's talk about the main types of printers. The one you've probably seen or heard of is FDM. That's the hot glue gun method we mentioned. It just melts a spool of plastic and draws out each layer, one on top of the other. It's affordable, it's pretty fast, and it's the technology that really brought 3D printing to the masses. Next up, you've got resin printers. Now, this is a whole different ballgame. Instead of melting plastic, these machines have a vat of liquid resin and they use a really precise UV light to cure it, hardening it layer by layer. And the result? Oh, it's just stunning. Resin printers give you parts with incredible, mind-blowing detail and super smooth finishes. Perfect for things like jewelry or dental models. And finally, we have our powder-based printers, like SLS. These are the industrial heavy hitters. They use a powerful laser to actually melt and fuse together tiny particles of plastic powder. Yeah, they're more expensive, but the trade-off is strength. This method creates parts that are incredibly strong and durable, tough enough to be used in cars and even airplanes. Okay, so we know the history, we know the tech, but what's the big deal? Why does all this matter in the real world? Well, this is where it gets really exciting because this technology is quite literally printing a new reality for us. The impact is absolutely transformative. We're talking about total design freedom to create these wild, complex shapes that were impossible before. We can mass customize products for people at almost no extra cost. And maybe the biggest deal of all, we can manufacture things on demand wherever we need them. So you see, this isn't just a new way to make the same old stuff. It's a way to design and build things that could not exist before. And hey, this isn't some far-off theory. It's happening right now in basically every major industry. Aerospace companies are printing lighter parts to save tons of fuel. Doctors are creating custom implants for their patients to get better surgical outcomes. Car companies are printing custom tools to speed up their assembly lines. The applications are everywhere, and they're growing every day. So if you look at how companies are actually using this stuff, yeah, prototyping is still the king. About 2/3 of the time, that's what it's for. But look at that growing slice for end-use parts. Over 20% of the time, companies are using 3D printing to make the final products they sell to you and me. That's huge, and that number is climbing like crazy as the tech gets better and cheaper. This quote just hits the nail on the head, especially for an industry like aerospace. It's not about just making something a little bit lighter for fun. On an airplane, every single pound you save can translate into millions of dollars in fuel savings over its lifespan. That's a massive, massive economic driver to adopt this tech.
And check out this powerful example. Imagine a surgeon getting ready for a super complex operation. Before they even step into the operating room, they can hold and study an exact 3D printed replica of their patient's organ. They can plan their attack, practice the procedure. This gives them a level of precision that was unheard of before, and that means safer surgeries and better results for all of us. So the impact today is already huge, right? But the technology is not even close to standing still. Let's take a look over the horizon at what's coming next, because it gets even wilder. So what does the next layer of this revolution look like? Well, the future is going to be even more integrated, more intelligent, and frankly, a little bit mind-bending. Get ready for this. We're seeing AI getting involved, creating these hyper-efficient designs that look almost alien, stuff humans would never think of. We're on the edge of 4D printing, yep, 4D, where objects can literally change shape or assemble themselves after they're printed. And the materials are exploding. Everything from bio-inks that could print living tissue to new super strong metal alloys. It's all about making printing smarter, more dynamic, and way more integrated with our world. You know, this quote from an industry CEO really gets to the heart of the end goal. The ultimate sign of success for 3D printing is when we stop talking about it, when it's not special anymore. It'll just be another tool in the toolbox, so fundamental that calling it out will be like saying you're using the hammer industry. It'll just be manufacturing. And that really sums up this whole journey, doesn't it? We've watched 3D printing go from a dream and a short story to an essential piece of how we build our world. It's broken all the old rules, and it is fundamentally redefining what is even possible. So we'll leave you with his final thoughts. For the first time in human history, the gap between an idea and a physical object is smaller than it has ever been. The power to create is right here, right now. So the only question left is, what will you make?
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.